guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 36. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. And stay tuned all the way till the end to see a montage of painted minis courtesy of the EOB Complete community. This is a show where I talk on painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week, and I end every episode with a story. Now you might think to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week and you stream every single night. How? Do you possibly have more to say? Well, I do. And here it goes. This week I built and painted and played a game with some Kroot in Kill Team, and it was super duper fun. I've been reading the Kill Team compendium as much as I possibly can, and I'm figuring out which teams sound interesting to me. And the Kroot, I think, are some of the most fun I have had with a Kill Team. They get a shocking 13 models, although you will always replace 2 models with a Krootox. Much like the Tau, the Kroot only have one. Actually, the Tau have a bunch of fire teams, but the Kroot only has one fire team, but you're allowed to switch out models within that fire team. You can swap one Kroot Carnivore for a Kroot Hound, which Kroot Hounds are pretty badass. They are the fastest models in the game of Kill Team. Most models can only move 6 inches per movement phase. Kroot Hounds can move 8. And in movement phase, I just mean as an action. There's no more movement phases. I'm getting my wordage mixed up. And the mighty Krootox. A regular Kroot is a 8 wound, which is 1 above a normal human, with a pretty bad save of 6 up, but the Krootox is a mighty 16 wound monstrosity with a 4 up save. The Krootox is pretty badass. I wish you could take more than 1, but you're only allowed to take 1 per kill team. But I had so much fun with the Kroot. They have so many wonderful abilities to stay concealed but still get to do stuff. In the game of Kill Team, they have introduced this wonderful mechanic called Conceal or Engage. Usually, you just draw a line in like Age of Sigmar or 40k, you just draw a line of sight to anything you can see. And that means that smaller models have a much easier time getting hidden behind cover than big models. But in Kill Team, you can give a model a conceal order, and that means that if it is hiding behind something, it is actually tucked down, hidden, and you're not allowed to try to shoot at them. And the Kroot with their 6 up saves, they desperately want to not get shot at, and so they have the ability to, on the fly, change their conceal to engage, and that is super duper helpful. They even have an ability that lets them charge models while concealed, which you're usually not allowed to do. When you're concealed, you're hiding, and you're not allowed to shoot or charge, but the Kroot are able to charge, and you would think, well, why would you want to charge though if you're not allowed to fight? Because you still can't fight when you're concealed, but it's great because you get to charge the enemy, and then they have two annoying options. They either have to fight you in their next activation phase, which your Kroots are okay in close combat. You probably don't want to fight them, or you have to spend all of your action points to fall out of combat. So it really does give you a wonderful option. I love the Kroots. They are super cool, and I definitely can't wait to get them in more games. I played them against the Orc Commandos, which are a very good kill team because they're very killy. Holy moly. But the Kroots definitely, they held their own. I did lose, but it wasn't a crushing defeat. It was fairly close, and I'm really excited to try the Kroot out against some less tough armies. Like, I think they would do really, really well against other human-sized armies, like Eldar or Imperial Guard. It'd probably be tricky to fight them against Space Marines, but who knows? I would love to try out that game. But I am in love with the Kroots. I think they're going to be my kill team, and right now I have built exactly enough models to field the list that I'm fielding right now, but I think I'm going to build a bunch more Kroot Carnivores so that I can field all 13 Kroot Carnivores, because I think that would be fun. But that is what I built, that is what I worked on this week for painting, and then I went over to Warhammer community, and I saw that my heart skipped a beat. Angels of Death, the Warhammer TV show, is ending in one more episode. The Angels of Death is my favorite 40k animation, and it is a tragedy that it is not on YouTube for everybody to watch, because not that many people have seen this show, only people who are subscribed to Warhammer Plus, which is the same as Warhammer TV, and Warhammer Vault, and all of the other dumb things that they have. But it should be one thing called Warhammer Plus, and you go to Warhammer Plus, and then you can read the books, you can watch the shows, and you can download the app. It should all be in one place. But, and that one place should be YouTube. But, because it's such a cool show. I really loved Astartes, and Astartes is gorgeous. It's unbelievably beautifully shot, and like the cinematography and just the action of it is amazing. But it's like an 11-minute, mostly silent story of Space Marines just being badass, which is awesome. But Angels of Death is a long-running story with characters and different narratives and different things going on. It is super awesome, and I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see how it ends. And it's gonna end, which brings up what's gonna happen after. Are they gonna start a new animation show? That's gonna be my guess, is that as soon as that show, I bet we get one filler week, because they already gave us one filler week when they brought Astartes onto the channel. I bet we get one more filler week, maybe Hell's Reach will come onto the channel, I don't know, and then we'll get the start of a new animated show. Because Angels of Death is by far the best thing on Warhammer Plus. But I'm excited, it's so good. It is so good. The animation is not flawless, and the one thing I would complain a little bit is that the noise, the Foley, is a little bit like they have one gun noise, they have one explosion noise, they have one Gene Stealer roar noise. You gotta mix those things up a little bit, but I hardly notice because the story and the action is so cool that I totally can look past that stuff easily. And then I scrolled a little further down the Warhammer community page, and I saw something that I didn't think I could ever possibly see, but I saw a Warhammer, or a Lord of the Rings thing from Games Workshop that I actually think looks really, really cool. I like Lord of the Rings. I've seen all the movies a few times. I've read The Hobbits, and I watched all the Hobbit movies in theaters, but I like Lord of the Rings. I don't love Lord of the Rings. Leave your comment below accordingly. And but this box, Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, Battle in Balin's Tomb. See, I'm not that big a fan. Battle in Balin's Tomb. This looks really, really cool, actually. It looks cool for a bunch of reasons. I like Lord of the Rings enough that painting up the Fellowship sounds like a really, really fun time to me. It looks like a smaller game. It's actually in the small-sized Games Workshop box, which hopefully means it's not gonna cost a crazy amount of money. And I could totally see this box being a great gateway to trick people into playing war games with you. Because a lot of people, like if you're like, oh, you wanna play Age of Sigmar, there's a big phone book of rules and the models, they're gonna say no. But tons of people out there love Lord of the Rings, and if you're like, hey, do you want to play this Lord of the Rings game I got? It's just, you know, you can play as the Fellowship versus the Trolls, and they're gonna be like, yeah, that sounds cool. And maybe you play a few games of this, and they have fun, and then you're like, you know, there's a lot more of this out there. There's a sci-fi version, there's fantasy version, we can play Malifaux, I feel like it'd be a great way to introduce people into the game. I don't think it'll bring in a lot of Lord of the Rings. How are people getting into the Lord of the Rings fantasy strategy battle game? I feel like it's just not happening. Who cares about Lord of the Rings? The miniatures game. But this actually looks really, really cool, and I kind of want to get it and paint it up and have it. It looks neat. And I love that it's in this small box. If it was a big box, I don't think they could do that. Like, big boxes are for $40K. We found out this year with Dominion. Nobody bought Dominion, but yeah, the big old $200 redo boxes is only for $40K because it's the only thing popular enough. I think that this in the small box with the small rules and a couple of playing cards and the models you want. Everybody wants the Fellowship. This is going to be a really, really cool box. I really, really dig it. It looks so simple. It looks like there's maybe a couple dozen cards, a few dice, and then just some tokens. Just one type of token. How great is that? I really want to give this a try. It looks really, really neat. Another big thing I worked on this week was I have two monitors that I look at while I'm painting on camera, and they are different monitors. And so they're at weird wonky heights and they have different stands. And so I decided to build a new stand for them out of a piece of wood and some bolts I had laying around. And it was really, really fun. I cleaned off the table and I spread out all of the supplies, and I was doing measuring, and I built out my plans, and I drafted it, and then I cut it out, and then I measured it against the real things, and I made alterations and corrections, and then finally I applied it to my wood, and I cut out the wood and I sanded it nice, and I had just a wonderful time building a thing, and it kind of awakened in me how much I really like building like things, really big things. I like building models a lot, but building real stuff is it's just a little different experience, and I really dug it. And my computer stand turned out great. I had it all built and it was lovely and it was perfect. And then I attached my monitors, and one monitor was about 3/4 inches too short. So I had to take it off, re-drill holes, and then move it back up. But luckily, because I've designed a few things in my day, I actually designed it with plenty of give so that I could do alterations. But it turned out really nice. And it was so much fun. It was like a 4-hour project of just cutting and drilling and sanding and then measuring wrong and then cutting again and then measuring, and it was wonderful. I really like building stuff, and I think I'm gonna try to figure out ways to build more and more things. I know that we do mostly painting miniatures on the channel, but I would love to do more proppy or construction things too. I know we've done a couple in the past, and I've really enjoyed them. But I think I'm gonna try to bring just a few more of those types of things onto the channel. And speaking of the channel and the content we produce, if you like us, then the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you're gonna get access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live here on YouTube, a live hobby hangout every week, some terrain STLs, and more. But with that said, that is what I worked on this week. I cannot believe how much time I spent looking at a Lord of the Rings product. I don't think I've ever clicked on that tab on the Games Workshop web store. Never once in my life, even to look. But that box is actually kind of cool. And I can imagine that box could totally sway some people to like trying out a miniature game. With that said, it is now time for the memory portion of this show. The show is called Models Memories, and that is because the memories associated with the miniatures. And this week, building that contraption to hold up my monitors awakened a memory in me, and that is when I created this. This is a 40K bolt pistol I made out of foam, out of the pink insulation wall foam. And this thing turned out super duper nice. And I never, ever finished it. I never gave it a barrel. I built another one on camera, and there's actually a video on how I did that step by step. It was like a 100-hour project that we condensed into a video, and it's an okay video. I think you should go check it out. But this was the prototype, essentially. And the reason it doesn't have a barrel is actually because I use the spray paint cap to make the barrel on the big bolter, and it worked really well. But it was a little bit too big for the bolt pistol, so I was kind of waiting to see if I found a cap that would be the appropriate size to be the barrel of the bolt pistol, and I never found it, and then it just kind of left, and I stopped working on the project. But it worked out really nice. It's all pink insulation foam that I cut on a scroll saw or by hand, and then it's covered in many layers of wood glue. Wood glue dries like resin, and it does a really good job of making it nice and strong. Not everything is covered in 100% wood glue. The more fragile parts are super wood glued, like 50 coats, and everything else has like 2 coats. But it turned out really nice, and you know, it looks like I maybe made it 7 years ago, because it's got some flaws. It's got some flaws, but let me go grab. Boom! The 3D printed storm pistol that I made not that long ago. I didn't design the plans, but I put it together and finished it, and it turned out so lovely. I absolutely adore this thing. And if there's any cosplay or people in the know, let me know how you deal with spray paints on props, because I find that it's completely dry and the finish is very nice, but the handle has absorbed a little bit of my hand oils, and it's made the paint just a little bit fragile. It's barely a problem, but it's a problem for me because I notice that it's just a little bit fragile where my hand has touched it. And that's probably, I don't know if there's a way to avoid that, because I mean, this is enamel paint. It should be fine even without some sort of a varnish on it, but I don't know, maybe coat it in cyanoacrylite could give it a little bit more of a hardy finish. but I super duper love making stuff like this. I actually studied costume design, and I would love to do some 40K cosplays. Maybe even a cosplay based on each of the armies I play in 40K, because think about how much of a that guy you would be actually dressed up as your faction while playing a game of 40K. Doesn't that sound amazing? But I super duper get a lot out of building physical objects and finishing them and making them perfect and doing all of these different little steps and operations, and I can go back through my long history of building things and working on theater projects and props. I've never met a project that I couldn't figure out. I've been asked to make shrunken heads. I've been asked to make corsets and dresses. A designer who was not a very good drawer or sketcher just gave me the worst looking renderings I've ever seen. And then I had to drape, pattern, and build costumes based off of those drawings. I just love taking things and then realizing them. And I would like to do more of that. I don't know if I would bring something like this to a convention, a plastic prop. I think I would probably try to build stuff out of foam, which is not that bad because foam is a super usable tool. This one's made out of pink foam, but I think EVA foam is probably the way to go because it's a little bit easier to work with and safer and forgiving, and you can do a lot of easy curves with EVA foam. But I love this thing, and I remember I had an alarm on my phone because every, I think, hour and a half, I had a spray bottle of Elmer's glue, and this was hanging from the ceiling with like with a plastic bag underneath. And every hour and a half, I would come down and I would spritz it from all directions so that it had a nice coating on there. Because spray paint will eat foam if you just put spray paint onto foam, and so I had to make sure that every single part of it was completely sealed. But boy, was it a sight, just hanging from the ceiling, just awkwardly spinning, just ever so slightly, just spinning around. But yeah, this thing is neat, and I'm pretty sure I got it fairly accurate to Space Marine size, which means it is hilariously big. But I absolutely love it. I don't know what happened to the bolter. I think I might have broken it or lost it, but it worked out really nice. Yeah. But that I should just go ahead and find something to finish the to finish this. It needs to be finished after all of these years, and then I can go and I can put it on the shelf. It looks really good from a distance. Once you get up close and personal, yeesh. But it would look plenty good enough over on the shelf. But that is my memory for this week. This thing looks dope in person from, from 2 inches away. This thing is sweet. But that is my memory for this week, and it'll bring this episode of Models and Memories to a close. Now it's time for the real star of the show, this week's EOB Complete submissions. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. A Beastman Minotaur by The Bee, an Indominus Primaris Captain by Disco, a Castellan Knight by Aldous, a Necron Plague Marine by Witness My Minis, a Warrior by Vindro Joe, a Squad of Orc Boys by Rum, a Trazine the Infinite by Cubicle Lemming 9, an Exalted Sorcerer of Tzeentch by Adrian, a Veteran Guardsman Kill Team by Mystic, a Gloomspite Arachnarok Spider by Kega Tarasha Zuma, a Custom Venerable Dreadnought by Veritech, a Space Marine Captain by Pan and a Half, a Space Marine Assault Intercessor by Power Surge, some Orc Commando Knobs by Zephyr, a Space Marine Reaver by Gremlins E2, a Burton Corpse Eater by Gordon Freeman, some Space Marines and Necrons by Frying Pan Man, some Stormcast Eternals by Rastine, a Skitarii Trooper by Prusek, a Combined Army Robo-Worm by The Happy Heretic, a Dark Angels Azrael by Bonerjam 03, a Space Marine Reaver by A Rules Not Be, some Custom Space Marines by Pyrite, a Chaos Space Marine by Lucas, a Primaris Redemptor Dreadnought by Dreech, a Terminator with Assault Cannon by Poohead, a Primaris Lieutenant by Protech, and an Orc Gorkonaut by Gaiden 0090. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.